Welcome to Artist Corner. Today I am pleased to introduce one of the artists in residence at the Greater Fall River Art Association. Her name is Mary Agnes Murphy. Mary Agnes has been painting for a number of years, and she's been an artist in residence here at the association for I think about 4 years. She works mainly in oils. That is her preferred medium, but sometimes we can con her into working into acrylics with a whole lot of arm twisting. So I'd like to welcome Mary Agnes. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Dana, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. I'm glad to have you here. So tell me, how long have you been painting?
How long have I been? Let's see. Does that count the first painting that I did that was a paint by numbers when I was 10?
Sure.
At a class, and I fell in love with the smell of oil paint.
No kidding.
It's the smell made me feel artistic. I really liked oil paint, and when I went to UMass Amherst as an art major, I just sort of continued in that vein. I really liked the oils. I also liked printmaking because there was a chemical smell to that as well.
Okay.
And I just find that oil painting is the best medium for me to work in.
Okay.
I also work in pastels, watercolor. I still do woodcuts now and then. I've done sculptural work. I do crafts work, fabric work, but I still keep going back to oil painting.
It's your jam, as they say.
I guess so. And it's been that way for a long time.
Excellent, excellent. So what kinds of things do you like to paint?
I have painted everything from extremely abstract 6-foot by 9-foot size canvases to miniatures, and miniatures are approximately the size of postage stamps. And I do those with very, very tiny oil brushes.
And they're oil paintings?
And those are oil paintings, and they're done with the same techniques that I would do a large canvas with.
Wow. All right. So tell me what we're working on today.
Okay, what I'm working on today is a little landscape. I did the original drawing on the Taunton River. It was the inspiration for it down by the battleship, but I have decided that it really had to be more rural, probably maybe what Fall River looked like in the early 1800s. When it was fields across the river, and it was farmland, and in the 1700s, from the river back to the Watuppa was farmland.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
It was divided into farmlands.
That's pretty amazing. So tell me about the process. I see lots of layers, and
this is one of the things I like about oil painting, is it's a building process, and it becomes almost sculptural. But you start with a background or a base color. I usually start with the sky color, and I just bring it all the way down to the bottom of the canvas. Okay. I used to tell people it was my creationist theory. That there was space first, right. Then there was water, then there was land, and the last thing I put in is anything that's man-made.
Okay.
So that's my creationist theory of painting. And each layer builds on the other one. Some layers are more transparent. Okay. By adding linseed oil or chirp to it, it will make the paint more transparent.
Gotcha. Okay. That's like somebody who works in acrylics might add water or some other kind of a medium to make it like when they work with acrylics, the only thing, the big difference is in oils, it doesn't dry as fast. Okay.
You have more opportunity to play with the color, okay. To work the color.
Awesome. How do you get the texture? I'm seeing lots of texture here.
All right. The texture, let's see if I can do something for you. The texture, you take a lot of paint, either on the end of your brush or on a painting knife or a palette knife, and just lay it down. And by laying it down, you can create waves, shapes. and then I can go back in and add other colors to it later.
Okay.
But these were all put, these particular ones, a lot of them were put in with the edge of a palette knife.
Okay.
And you just sculpt with it.
That's awesome. About how long does it take between each layer so that you can make the next layers?
Usually I let it dry at least overnight.
Okay.
Some paint companies will tell you that their paint will dry to touch within 3 to 4 days, but that's if you haven't added any medium to it or any linseed oil.
Okay. What other things can you add to the oil paints? I see when I go to any of the art stores, there's a whole long list.
Oh, there's a lot of stuff.
There's a lot of stuff that you can add, and I'm just curious as to what kinds of things you choose to add when you use these.
Traditionally, I make my own medium out of 2 pots of linseed and 1 pot of turp.
Okay.
And I use real turpentine, not turpenoid, because of the oil factor. And but you can buy fast drying mediums which have a varnish in them.
Okay.
You can buy slower drying ones which have more linseed oil.
Okay.
I've experimented with a lot of them.
Yep.
And I've made some of my own over the times. Some of them you might want a glossier finish on the paint.
Right.
So you experiment with the amount of linseed oil that you put in.
Okay. And tell me about the linseed oil. What does that do for you in terms of the oil?
Besides smelling great?
I've smelled that in that studio.
Yeah. The linseed oil makes the paint more pliable.
Okay.
It makes it want to move on the canvas. Okay. Another thing that linseed oil does is you can actually, if you have a tube of paint, some of my paints go back to when I was in undergraduate school, which was a long time ago. If a paint tube has any flexibility in it, there is usable oil paint in there.
Okay.
If I can no longer get the cap off and it doesn't look like it's going to be a big waste, I'll slice it with a razor. Okay. Open it up and just add a little linseed oil to it and mix it, and it becomes viable paint again.
Oh, wow. Okay. Is there how do you know, is there a formula that you use, like 2 parts linseed oil, 1 part paint?
Oh, no, you just mix it until it feels right.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, there's the scientific.
It's very scientific. My approach to painting is very scientific.
Yes.
I one time told someone when they were during one of my thesis projects, they asked why did I use a certain size brush? And I just looked at them and said, well, I haven't found another tool that gets the paint on the canvas any better. And my friends who were witnessing it was dying because they thought for sure I was not going to pass. And they said it was the most logical answer. It was not, I'm sure I could come up with something very philosophical.
Talk to me about your brushes. Do you have a preference?
I do a lot of work with flat brushes.
Okay.
These are called a flat brush, and they come in different lengths. They come in a longer length and a shorter length. Okay. For this size painting, I am using I think this is a 8 and this one is a 6. What I like about these brushes is that you can use the side for lining. You can make thin lines with them. You can use the end. You can do a variety of strokes with a brush like this. They're all a little stiff. They're all a natural bristle. Okay. They clean very well. This particular brush is over 50 years old.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I can tell from my teeth marks. I used to hold them like this.
Well, you got another one going. I like it. I like it. So tell me what kinds of paints you prefer.
Okay. I do prefer Grumbacher paints. Okay. I like using Grumbacher. I used to use Bellini a lot, which was another company made in New York, but it's been very difficult. I think they were bought out by somebody because I haven't found them. I still have some Bellini paints in my box in the studio, but I like the professional grade of Grumbacher. It's a consistent color. Okay. You're always getting, and the amount of oil mixture to the powder that makes the paint is pretty much consistent.
Pretty consistent.
If you buy a cadmium red in one shop and you buy it in another one, it's going to be the same color.
Understood. Understood. You have one of the most colorful palettes I've ever seen here. I personally would like to just put a frame around that and hang that on my wall. But I notice it seems to be laid out kind of in a pattern or specifically. Can you talk about that?
There is a system to the way I lay out the palette. I always have a corner for white, which is my neutral, and it's the only neutral I really use. I do not use black because I think black really deadens a painting. If I need black, I mix it. Then going down this way, I have reds and oranges. They go into the yellowy oranges, into the bright yellows, into the earth yellows, which is all of the yellow ochre and sepias. And then I have browns. And in the center part, I have blues because I use a lot of blue in mixing my dark colors.
Okay.
And I use a Prussian blue, which really looks almost black. And a lot of people say, oh, you got black on your palette, but the center part is really Prussian blue. And I use that to darken or deepen colors.
Okay.
And then up here, normally I used to mix my own greens, but then I discovered Krumbacher made some very good greens. So I use the top corner for greens, and I do a lot of landscapes. So it helps. It makes it a lot easier.
That's awesome. Now talk to me about your white, because I know that there are, I don't know, at least when you go to the art supply store, there are probably 25 different colors of white, and they all have different, some are cool, some are warm, some are everything in the middle. Talk to me about the whites that you tend to use.
I tend to use, well, primarily I tend to use either a zinc white or a titanium white. Zinc white is a very cool white.
Okay.
And I like the coolness because it blends very well with my water and my skies, and it sort of makes a painting feel comfortable.
Okay.
The titanium, which has, to me, people call it a little warmer, but I think it's more yellow.
Okay.
And it tends to, I think, deaden the colors.
Okay.
Now, zinc is a hard color to come by. It has something to do with the metals that are in it. So now they usually use a combination. You'll see a combination titanium zinc.
Okay.
And titanium zinc works quite well. I think this is a titanium zinc that I'm using now. And the other ones is a lot of companies will name their whites all different things so that you think you have to buy all of them. All you need is one white and then experiment. If you feel it's too warm or too cool, if it's too cool, add a little bit of yellow to it. It'll make it an ivory.
Okay. Oh, that's awesome. Wow. I didn't know that. I did not know that. I thought you'd have to have a
painting class, Danny. You're going to learn
I know,
a lot.
and Mary Agnes is also one of the instructors at the Art Association, and she does have a beginning oil painting class that's going to be starting in December. And for those of you who would like to try this particular medium, Mary Agnes has obviously been trying to get me to do it because I don't personally work in oil painting. I have no patience for things that don't dry instantly, but
it's a good character builder.
So I'm going to build my character and take Mary Agnes's oil painting class. So as a beginner, when you were first starting out, how did you decide? You obviously enjoy landscapes. Why not portraiture? Why not?
Okay.
How did you decide to do this?
How did I decide to do it? Well, I really do enjoy looking at nature. I had spent every summer from the time I was a little girl in the Adirondack Mountains. You're surrounded by nature.
Okay.
There's no choice. You have to look at a tree, you look at a tree. You understand that they're all different. And they had more personality than some of the people I knew. And and when I was in high school and I took classes at what was then Durfee Tech, which is now UMass Dartmouth, they offered classes for students. And when I took classes, by the time I was in high school and I was taking the classes, they did offer oil painting.
Okay.
Studio oil painting. And we could work from, sometimes we worked from models, sometimes we worked from still lives, but sometimes we could work from our own photographs.
Okay.
Which I find is okay to do, to work from a photograph that you personally took.
Okay.
Not from somebody else's photograph, not from some calendar, but something you took, because it's only to trigger your memory as to what was there.
Okay.
And then you put the photograph away and you just paint what's in your brain.
Okay.
And I found landscapes were really good. When I went through an extremely abstract period, my abstracts were still landscape.
Interesting.
People could still see landscapes. They could still see images of mountains. They could see images of water in my abstracts.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. But I also know that you paint animals, because I've seen them.
Do paint animals. I do animal portraits with people.
Nice.
And I sometimes do those in pastel, and sometimes I do them in watercolor, in pen and ink. I have done a few animals in oil paint, but I don't normally do those for customers, because they are very involved.
True. True.
And they don't really, they want something instant.
We're not waiting. So how long from start to finish would you guess, say something this size, would take somebody to do?
This particular one, if someone was doing a painting this size, 11 by 14, within that size range,
yep.
They could probably have a finished work within 5 to 6 weeks,
okay.
Once a week. Maybe within a week, if you're working every day, 12 hours a day, you know, you could. I have churned out paintings that fast. Oftentimes what I will do, so that I'm not just sitting around doing nothing, I'll start 3 and 4 canvases.
Okay.
And I'll do a step, and I'll put that one away, and then I'll go back to something else and work on that one. One thing I really like about oils, Dana, is that an oil painting is really never finished. You can always go back to it. Some mediums, like watercolor,
yep.
It's over, it's done, that's it. Pastels are difficult to go back into.
Right.
Once they've been finally, you know, sprayed. But an oil painting, it can dry. I can look at a painting. In fact, before my show a year ago, I looked at a couple of paintings that were going into the show, and I said, oh, no, that's not right. And I put them back on the easel and did additional work to them. And so, you know, I think an oil painting is the kind of thing that is living. It grows. It can change. I looked at one at my daughter's house over the weekend. And I said, you know that? You should probably bring that back to the studio. And she's afraid I'm going to do something to it.
Do something different. So now say you get this all done and say something isn't working for whatever reason.
Okay.
Do you, like, gesso it over?
I could.
Okay.
I could. If I decided when I was working on this that I really, really didn't like the whole plan, I didn't like the layout, I didn't want to work on this kind of thing, this particular one anymore, I would, when it's dry,
yep.
I would sand it lightly with a piece of sandpaper.
Okay.
That gets rid of some of the texture.
Okay.
And then I would just use gesso, which is an acrylic.
I was just going to say, it's an acrylic though, right?
That's okay.
Okay.
Canvases are treated with gesso anyway. Right. I would gesso over it maybe 2 to 3 layers, okay, so that nothing bleeds through.
Okay.
Let it dry, and I've got a brand new canvas.
Ah.
And actually, some of my very old canvases probably have 3, 4, and 5 paintings under them, because when I was a starving artist, you had
canvas
to paint.
Was expensive.
Canvas was very expensive.
Wow. Now, have you done the whole raw canvas, stretcher bars, and all that stuff?
Oh, yes. I still have some rolls of raw canvas, and I still have all my materials for stretching canvas. I do that if I get a request for a painting that is not a traditional stock size.
Okay.
I see no need to stretch canvas that's in a stock size, because
why bother?
Why bother? They're very good quality canvases are sold that are pre-stretched.
Okay.
But I will stretch my own canvas if somebody wanted an odd shape, a peculiar shape, or say an extremely long pictures, say something the size of this table, I would stretch that myself.
Wow. So you get raw canvas and
Stretcher bars.
And
a very heavy-duty staple gun.
I was going to say staple gun.
And stretcher pliers. They're an upholstery tool.
Oh, gotcha. Yep.
That has a wide flange on the end.
Okay.
Catches the canvas, and you pull it over with one hand and staple with the other.
Wow. And then how many layers of gesso would you put on that
on
raw
a
canvas?
raw canvas, I would probably put at least 4.
Drying in between.
Drying in between each one of them.
Wow. Wow. Well, you got to give your paint something to grab a hold of.
Because without the gesso, it will only soak into, and if you don't have enough gesso on, it soaks right through the canvas.
Oh, that's good to know. Oh, that's very good to know, Mary Agnes. That's very good to know. So you've said that you do other than just oil painting. Talk to me about your pastel work.
Okay, in pastels, I also do a lot of landscapes, but in pastels, I'll do a lot of the animal portraits.
Okay.
And I like to work on toned paper.
Okay.
I don't work on white paper when I'm working with pastels. I work on ivory, gray, sometimes black.
And why is that?
Because the chalk shows up better. Just remember when you were a kid in school, what color were the boards teachers wrote on?
Oh, they always wrote on black or
They
green.
were black or green because the white and yellow chalk showed up better.
Oh.
Well, the color of the paper and the stock, the colors that you work with in pastel will show up better.
Oh, wow. Can you teach us a class in pastels?
I could teach a class in pastels.
All righty. That's good. That's for future reference, everybody. We're going to do some pastels. But talk to me. You have been a teacher.
I was a teacher, yes.
Yes. You were a teacher in Fall River?
I taught in Springfield, Massachusetts. I taught junior high, it was called in those days. And then when I got married and moved to Fall River, I taught in Fall River for a number of years before I started graduate school. And I taught at UMass Dartmouth, which was SMTI at the time, and that became SMU before I finished. I taught there in printmaking and graphic design and bookmaking. And following that, I went back to teaching in the public schools because it was one of those periods of American economy where art education on the college levels was being dropped and there were no jobs. So I went to work in a public school. And I taught for 13 or 14 years in the public schools. And then I have MS, and my MS got really bad.
Okay.
So we decided that I would take a buyout from the school system. We would invest in a studio, which we built in the home. And I did inch to a foot scale miniatures. That's where I did the small paintings.
ones.
And furniture and custom pieces for collectors.
Wow.
And I sold those and made those for 18 years before I came here actually came to BCC.
Okay.
And taught English for speakers of other languages.
Oh, nice.
And got into adult education. Then I went to work for the Department of Education. And in the meantime, also taught some oil painting classes here, not for art majors, but as a non-credit course for adults who just wanted to experiment with oils.
Nice. Nice. Oh, awesome. Wow.
So I've done a lot of different things.
Awesome. So I can't tell you how happy I am that you are part of the Art Association, but I am grateful that you came today so that we could have at least a conversation about what you do. I am honored to be able to come up to your studio whenever you're here, you're there, and watch and chat and sit in your comfy chair and just watch you work.
Well, that's why I have that comfy chair.
And I am grateful for your counsel. You've been doing a lot of work for this association, and I am grateful for that as well. So I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate you, and thanks for coming and sharing your knowledge, and being the first guest on Art Corner.
I was really excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, everyone, if you want to see Mary Agnes, she's at the Greater Fall River Art Association. We always have her work up on the walls. Her studio is at the top of the stairs on the second floor. Please come if you're interested in doing some painting and learning oil painting. Please come. She is one of our better teachers that we have in terms of people who teach there. So come and join us. We'd love to have you, and if you're interested in oil painting, please come and join us. Thanks very much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.